That's what I was just looking.
Yeah.
TOT?
Oh, yeah,
or-
TOT. We're on
Okay.
TOT next, yeah.
Welcome to the afternoon session. Mr. Espinoza, I guess we'll move on to item 46.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're on item number 46 this afternoon. We have Sarah Fontanos, here. She's our management analyst out of administration, along with Barbara Thompson, to discuss with you the TOT and what plans basically we have available for you, a couple of different options, and possibly adopt a resolution. So again, we have Sarah here to talk a little bit more about that. Sarah?
Good afternoon, everyone. So at the last meeting, your board did give staff direction on the amount of TOT to increase to from 8 to 12%, and the type of tax, which was general, so that we could create and develop the resolution and ordinance, the resolution to set the item on the November 4th ballot. So as you can see, you do have now, instead of two actual versions. But before I get into those two versions, I'm going to go over a short deadline recap. So it is correct, we would hope to adopt a resolution today, but it is not absolutely necessary. We can adopt the resolution as a drop deadline date on August 5th. So there's not too much pressure there, but obviously sooner may be better than later in our case of workload. As Angela mentioned earlier this morning, the arguments would be due August 12th. So I definitely do hope that the board can discuss and determine whether or not you would like to appoint 1 or 2 supervisors to submit the argument today. That would be very helpful. And then moving on to why you have 2 versions before you. At our last meeting, there was some mention and discussion of the TOT tax rates across California. And I've actually pulled some information since then from the May 2014 California Travel Impacts Report by county. It's the years 1992 through 2012, if anyone wants to refer to those numbers. And I looked at average rates across cities and unincorporated areas. Currently, for cities, an average is actually at about nearly 10%. We're looking at 9.75, with a maximum of 15%, a minimum of 2, and a median and most common number of 10%. For unincorporated areas, it's a little bit lower for the average, about 9%, maximum of 12, a minimum of 4, and a similar median or most common being 10. So as I was sitting with this number and then looking at these numbers that actually change every year, they're increasing. It's constantly changing. I thought to myself, well, I'll provide you guys just another option. Doesn't have to be, it's there for you to determine. You have your option to increase it up to 12% solid, or the second version, the language is a little different in that it's not to exceed 12%. My thought process there was that it provided the board and staff a little more flexibility. It is an ever-changing economic situation. You can go up, you can go down, just based on current circumstances. And as well, I thought maybe a little more transparency to the public. I'm not sure if it's as common to people that just because it's set at a level that it doesn't mean that the rate can't be lowered. So to me, it was placing something on the ballot that was very clear that it wouldn't exceed a number, but the rate could fluctuate based on the board's, whatever you guys wish to do, but not to exceed, again, that set number. So in addition, just because you have these 2 resolutions in front of you with certain numbers doesn't mean that could change. It could even say something like not to exceed 13% or 12.5 just to accommodate for the election timeframes that we have, and again, ever-changing situations. I do think Barbara had something to mention before you decide to adopt or not.
I wanted to let the board know about an emerging issue in this area that we haven't been directed to address in this ordinance, but it's an issue that the board could choose to do so if it wanted. Some jurisdictions in regard to lawsuits that have been recently decided, including one as recently as this year, have made an effort to draft their ordinances to collect from the internet resellers of hotel occupancies. So right now, as the ordinance drafted, it's collected from the operator. Now, when the operator sells it to like a internet site, the tax would currently be collected on the wholesale rate, not the retail rate. We don't know the effect of this would have on our ordinance because it's basically what percentage of our hotel occupancies are sold through internet sites, and also what percentage is the wholesale rate discounted from the retail rate. But if you did want to address that, then we'd have to bring that ordinance back on August 5th and tweak it. This came to an attention because on May 8th of 2014, I actually received it just recently, there was a presentation at the League of California Cities from a specialist in taxation that addressed how different cities and counties are addressing this, and I went out and searched it, and it's not common yet in other jurisdictions because I couldn't find sample ballot measures from other jurisdictions. So a lot of jurisdictions are still just doing the increase in rates when you look at the ballot measures from different jurisdictions. But this is probably an area where different jurisdictions are going to start changing their ordinances from collecting from the operator to collect from any person that collects a fee or money in response to hotel occupancy. And that does have to go to a vote. So if you were interested in having that change, it should be consolidated with the increase in the TOT. So that's just an issue to decide whether or not you want to address it at this time or leave it to sometime in the future.
Supervisor Vitello?
Yeah, well, in fairness, you stay someplace, you got to collect the tax. And I would think that the owner-operator should have some bearing on collecting that tax. You can't wholesale a room, can you?
Anthony, do you have,
on the internet?
Supervisor Vitello, do you have your microphone on?
Pardon me?
Mike, is your microphone?
Oh, it's on.
Is it on? Okay.
Yeah, this time it's on.
Can't hear you.
Jeez. Okay, I'll talk louder.
I'm not the expert on hotel occupancies, but I understand that some of them will sell them to another site. And so let's say that I'm a hotel operator and I say that to one of the big internet sites that, $30 is my price, but then you can sell it for, $40 or whatever the amount is, that the retail site will sell it at a greater price than what the operator actually receives.
How would we collect it from the internet operator?
Well, you draft the ordinance so that they have to pay it. And then the cases that have come about is when the cities have tried collection actions against the internet sites.
I think we should do it all one time, myself.
Yeah, not have to go back and amend it.
Yeah.
So again, just in summary, we are looking at, one, having someone to hopefully help write an argument out for us, and then decide between the two, confirm that percent, decide between those two versions, and the inclusion or not of the internet item that Barbara mentioned.
Any other questions of the board? None? Do we have any speaker cards on this item? Would anyone from the audience like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say that I don't necessarily like the flexibility, because you put not to exceed 12%, and we're going to use the 12%. It'll give the impression to the public that we, in some way, we're not being upfront, and because we use the higher number anyway. So for me, I would rather be very specific and let the public know that this is what we're going to collect and go that way. So that's my preference. Thank you.
I think I would agree with you on that. But do we have concerns about this internet issue, and do we want staff to bring it back on August 5th for us?
I think the version should incorporate that, something to detail about collecting it from the internet as well. But if we don't collect it from the internet, wholesaler or whatever, then we're out the tax?
No, you still collect it at the lesser amount. You
At
still,
the
you
lesser
still,
amount
you
from
still
the
get it
owner,
at the lesser
operator.
amount.
Okay, that's fine, okay. That's better than nothing.
Oh, so
Everybody
you would be
understands.
drafting the ordinance so that we collect the face value of the room as opposed to what the
Yes.
room is actually being sold for?
Yes, I'll collect, it'll be drafted so it's the actual rate paid by the customer. The customer, the hotel occupant.
Oh, okay. So whatever is collected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that will involve tweaking the ordinance, both in the definition, probably section, and also maybe a little bit change to the ballot measure itself. So-
Mr. Chair, if I could ask, will this affect the timeline?
No, it would still go on the August 5th agenda.
Okay.
And that's, I've confirmed that there's time still with the Elections Department, still that's plenty of time to get it on for the ballot.
Good.
So do we need a motion to continue this to August 5th?
See, is there consensus for a straight rate first?
Rate 12%.
Yeah, I can go ahead and make a motion on the straight rate and go with select desired version, implementing an increase of 12% to 12%. Adopt the resolution, taking action on that version, which I don't know what that version.
We're not going to be adopting the resolution
Oh, we
today.
don't? Okay,
Yeah.
so we
Next
don't need
time.
to do that at this time.
Right.
But I will also include in my motion that we bring back language to address the collection of that tax
Yeah.
for internet sales.
And we don't even need to have a motion on that. We can just bring it back for the board's consideration.
Second.
So you don't need a motion, you just need
I
direction?
don't think so. If that's the consensus of the board, we can just bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay.
Everyone's good with that?
Does, Mr. Chair, does this require 4/5 votes or a simple majority vote?
It's going to require 4/5
And then today is just the consensus, which is
to
not really an
consensus to
issue.
bring it back next,
Yeah,
yes.
It's just simple majority.
Yes, but it will require 4/5 to
At
go
the
forward.
next meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So,
You have
okay.
direction?
then I'll.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
I'm going to be gone the next meeting.
Is any of the changes that we were talking about, the hotel operator, does that affect the 4/5 vote? Is there any part of the ordinance that will make it more of an issue?
I'll wait and see and then.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
You read my mind.
I'm not a be here the next meeting, believe it. So, hopefully,
So you need all 4 votes at the next meeting.
We could have a special meeting just to address this situation right after
I
our
would-
regular meeting.
the 5th, I'm not going to be here. So we could have a special meeting on the 4th to deal with it? That would be great.
The 4th will work.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm leaving on the 5th. It's scheduling malfunction.
I'll be back on the 4th. So we can do that on the 4th. Yeah. I'll be back on the weekend,
Yeah,
Saturday.
okay. Even if it's, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
So do we need to have a special meeting on the 4th?
Well,
Okay, all right. We'll have a special meeting on the 4th at 9 o'clock. Is that okay?
There you go. You don't have to.
Okay, we don't have to have a meeting? Okay, all right, then.
okay, good.
We don't have to have a meeting.
That's
Fair.
fine.
Okay, all right.
I'm so
So,
confused.
Yeah, I think I know what's going on, but
Everything good,
I think I
everything
know
good.
what's going on,
Yeah.
but we'll have a meeting, we'll have it back on the 5th,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you.
My motion is withdrawn. Yes.
Yeah, it was just direction. All right, I think we're moving on to item number 47. Mr. Granger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 47 is adopting a resolution placing the petroleum initiative on the November 4th, 2014 ballot, and Ms. Thompson will again address the board on this issue.
This resolution takes the administrative steps necessary to have it on the November 4th, 2014 ballot. Its most critical aspect of this resolution is setting the ballot text, the ballot question, which has to be 75 words or less. There was an email sent to the board members yesterday from Shute, Mahaly, and Weinberg that proposes alternate language to the ballot question. After reviewing that language, I would like to say that it's of course up to the board. However you wish to draft that ballot measure, as long as it's fair and impartial and clearly reflects the initiative in a fair and impartial manner would be adequate. But as far as the language that was suggested, I believe that we're not in favor of changing that language except for the addition of the comma. The words high intensity is not as neutral as the way that the language is currently written. Plus, it's not defined except if you actually refer back to the initiative. It doesn't clearly explain, the revised ballot question doesn't clearly explain everything that's being banned. It's going from more precise language to less precise. And it's, the words high intensity are not as quite, not perceived as neutral of language. And so I think that the language as currently drafted is probably more neutral and more impartial and a little bit more precise. But I have less opposition to the words residential if the board wanted to add the word residential, even though it's in essence a little bit redundant because we already list the general plan designations where the we list the general plan designations already where the ban would occur. In addition to that, the ballot adopting the resolution, then the other actions that the board has to take is determine whether to appoint one or more members to submit an argument in favor or against the proposed initiative. Both the proponents and a local group opposing the initiative are already planning to submit those arguments, so the board is not obligated. It's a totally discretionary point on the board if it wants to appoint representatives to do those arguments. And also to direct staff regarding publication of the text of the initiative in the sample ballot due to the cost and the uses of other funds, plus the fact that the initiative is actually going to be available by mail at no cost, and also the elections department has the option of placing it on the website. Whether or not the board wants to spend the funds to actually publish the full text of the initiative, since it's fairly lengthy, it's up to the board. But we weren't recommending publication of the full text. So I think I should open it up to public comment because I know that there's a number of people here to discuss on it. Does the board have any questions?
Well, give me, because this is the first chance I've had to see this letter, so I'm trying,
Yes.
I'd like to compare it, what's written in here to what you
And also
wrote.
San Benito Rising gave me the ballot question that's not just a straight, non-redlined, their revised ballot language if the board would like to see that, just for the ease of reading it. Oh, you've got 10. Okay, I just,
Hey,
Same
Mr.
thing.
Chair, can I ask Barbara a quick question?
same.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
Hey, Barbara.
yes.
So in our packet, the resolution, the question, the verbiage, and the way it was structured, was that done by staff?
Yes.
That was?
Yes.
Okay, and so was this directly pulled off of the initiative? You know, a lot of these words, or,
Yes, let me, I have the initiative here. It's really summarizing the initiative to a great degree, but it's actually pulling the language from the initiative
okay.
about, let me pull it up. For example, instead of high intensity, we actually use the language that is how high intensity is defined in the initiative.
Which is involving, well,
Let me go to the initiative itself.
stimulation treatments and enhanced recovery?
For example, high intensity, is defined by the initiative to include well stimulation treatments such as hydraulic fracturing
Or enhanced recovery?
and enhanced recovery. Yes, I'm reviewing it from the ballot title and summary that we also prepared, which was about a little bit less than 500 words. So we took and we tried to condense to get as clear a picture of the initiative without being able to go over 75 words.
Okay. Thank you.
And there's a variety of different ways that you can write a ballot measure,
Sure.
trying to get everything that's most critical into it. But it has to present a fair and unbiased presentation of the initiative.
Supervisor Patillo?
Yeah, I guess that's the crux of the discussion we're having right now, is what's going on the ballot needs to be an unbiased presentation of the initiative.
Yes.
But looking at, even just starting with the first word, in our version, or the county council's version, shall San Bernardino County's general plan be amended to ban petroleum operations? Is that, the initiative people want to put a little bit more of a description to it, high intensity. And my understanding has always been that it's the high intensity has been the focus of the effort here. And banning petroleum operations would be banning all petroleum operations.
It's split into two different parts, the ballot question. That's why I think the comment is actually a good addition, because the first one is to ban petroleum operations involving well stimulation, treatments, or enhanced recovery throughout all incorporated areas. So that's the first question regarding the enhanced recovery and well stimulation, which is the high intensity. And then the second part of the question, which is where a comma would be a good addition, to say all petroleum operations in the general plan designations, which are rural transitional, rural residential, rural urban, and sphere of influence, rural urban, which are the residential general plan designations in our current general plan.
Because, we're all voters here, and read your ballot initiative description. I'll read the first thing, and the first thing I see there is ban all petroleum operations.
It's
And
misleading.
I don't know if that is as unbiased as we want to be. And then behind it is the description of what high intensity really means. Is it high intensity? Is it a lot of oil coming out of a well, or a certain type of technology that's gone into the process? And so that's your definition right behind it. So I don't see where that's biased, unless someone could change my mind about it. And then what's crossed out kind of is what petroleum operations could be. Exploration, drilling, is everything. And the few times I've, talked to some of the people that were circulating the initiative, their focus has always been on the fracking and the high-intensity type of petroleum, and eliminating that type of operations from residential areas and a few other areas that they state in this letter. And I don't see where we lose the unbiasedness with the suggested language that they have here. But
Okay, that's fine.
that's my perspective.
And Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
And I tend to agree. I think if you add in high intensity, it clarifies it a little easier for residents, and you're able to probably reduce the question as far as the number of words that are in it.
Would you just add high intensity, right, like to ban high intensity petroleum operations and leave the rest of the question the same, or would you prefer to have the question as they've revised
Well, if you
it?
think it's necessary to keep everything in the the parentheses, then yeah, I'd probably end up leaving it the same, but I would include the ban on high intensity petroleum operations,
Okay,
and that's my recommendation.
can I put those in quotes, like as a term of art, high intensity? I think so. Okay. I know there's people in the public that would like to speak to that question too.
Any other question, or Barbara, before I open up to the public? Okay. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
Yes, we do. Larry Rebecki?
A lot of papers up here. Yeah, that's all right, I just put mine on top. I agree totally with Supervisor Bothello and Supervisor Rivas. I think, I don't know if it was intentional, but it's been toned down because when we had over 4,000 people sign our petition, the focus was high intensity and the methods, the high intensity hydraulic fracturing, acidizing, and cyclic steam injection. So I think high intensity has to remain in the sample ballot. I think these 4,000 people that signed the petition would be disillusioned. And I think California code, if I'm not correct, I'm not a lawyer, but I think there's a code that states it requires all ballot questions to state the nature of the proposed measure in a manner that is condensed version of the ballot title and summary. As a matter of fact, I would like to have the whole initiative published so people can read it. I think a ballot question sometimes can be misleading. I think we've all been misled on measures at the state level, and this is a critical issue in our community, and we can't play games. We have to be straight shooters. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Kristen and I live in Aromas, and I just wanted to point out that I think we all share the same value when we're coming into this question, which is that of an informed electorate best able to exercise their rights in democracy. And on complicated issues like this, I think it's especially important that we try to make the issue that people are making their minds up about the most clear that we possibly can, especially when there's such limited space in people's minds in their investment on issues. It's important that we limit the debate to be about the impacts to the county of what does fracking and cyclic steam injection and acidization mean as far as the economic impacts, the environmental impacts, the health impacts, and not about the factual basis of what the initiative actually says. We should be able to have a discussion of what the impacts of the initiative are without having to get bogged down in trying to clarify what the initiative says. I think that the new ballot language that we are proposing gives the voters a quicker, more distinct impression of what the ballot initiative says. It draws the distinction very clearly between the locations in which we would be banning the high intensity, they're my quotation marks, petroleum operations in the unincorporated areas, and then the general plan designations where we would be banning low intensity petroleum operations as well. I think that this is kind of a wake-up moment for all of us and an opportunity for you guys to take the time to read the initiative, to talk to the county council and the planning commission, and make sure that we're all clear on what it says. And I think when you delve a little deeper into the issue, you'll see that the new ballot language really most clearly elucidates the different general plan distinctions, as well as the difference between the high intensity and the low intensity operations and how they're treated in the initiative. So please take the time to look at it and help yourselves exercise your democracy, because every member of this county is going to have to make a decision on this, and we want to make sure they can do that with all the facts. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Nancy Amola. I'm an attorney from San Juan Bautista. I'm going to address three issues here very briefly. The first is what I believe is a proposed misleading ballot question. It does not even have the word fracking. It does not make clear that there is not an absolute ban here, that certain low-intensity operations are allowed. And that distinction has to be drawn because it's, quite frankly, one of the largest issues on the ballot. The second thing, and this ties in, County Council's office has suggested that the initiative should not be published in full in the voter's pamphlet, something that I find astonishing because the object of all public officers should be to increase the franchise, to make things clearer to voters, not to hide proposed language to save a few dollars. On one hand, they're saying, well, they're confusing terms here, but they don't want to publish the text of the initiative. That is wrong. It is denying voters their chance to understand how this impacts their interests. And finally, I want to make it clear, and I'm going to revisit in a minute the ballot question because I'm going to ask for a motion for a revision. But to remember back to May 6th, item 37, this board has already voted to put this on the ballot on November 4th. That consolidation has not occurred. Putting together a voter's pamphlet is not an excuse for delay in coordinating with the election. So we're very disappointed as proponents that this has been delayed for 2 months to essentially take care of what is admittedly administrative details. Now, revisiting the ballot question, I have put language before you that's a clean alternative proposal. I would seek a motion from someone on the board to revise the proposed ballot question currently found at the bottom of page 679 over to page 680, and that instead there be a substitution of the ballot question, which we have put before you in writing, a clear ballot question that, number one, states that this is about fracking. And by the way, the ballot question is supposed to come from the summary prepared by county council. On the first page of that summary, there are 4 mentions of high-intensity oil operations. There are a couple of mentions that low-intensity oil operations are allowed to continue. That's mentioned a couple of times. So we're essentially making it less clear in the current proposal rather than making it more clear. So again, I would ask that somebody on the board move to revise the proposed ballot question at the bottom of page 679.
Ma'am, if you can summarize, please.
Yes, and that instead we substitute the alternative language that I have submitted. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than pleased to entertain them. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andy Owenray. I live in Aromas in San Benito County. I was one of the people who helped gather signatures for this. Again, we got over 4,000 signatures, well over 1,000 more than the required verified signatures. And I gathered quite a few of them, and mostly outside of Save Mart, outside of Safeway, and going around to people's houses. And I noticed a few things. One of them was that there's overwhelming support that people don't want to have fracking in San Benito County. There were some people who were for it, but they were vastly outnumbered by people who were concerned about its effects on our water's quality and quantity. The other common thread I noticed was a lot of cynicism and disgruntlement with our electoral politics, the influence of money and basically corporate influence on what decisions are made. And when I explained to people who were cynical about it, I said, well, you know, this is us, we'll be deciding for ourselves in this county whether we're going to allow fracking. And at that point, I had people, even people who were supporters of fracking or were ambivalent about it, that said, yeah, I'll sign that because we get to decide for ourselves. I think it displayed really an important insight about what people think about our electoral system, and that they trust the people to make the decision democratically rather than leave it into the hands of our elected officials. And I feel like if this body adopts language that is that doesn't accurately represent what the initiative is going to do, it's just going to continue to increase that cynicism and that distrust of elected officials, because people will find out that this language is not accurate. We'll be talking about it, of course, that indeed, even though it leads with banning conventional methods like drilling and exploration, that's really only in about 3% of the land in our county, which is rural and rural residential, et cetera. So people will know about it and will know that that this was a decision made that's not that's trying to disadvantage this democratic decision that the people of this county have really openly demonstrated that they want to make for themselves. So thank you for your time.
Anybody else like to address the board on this item? If anybody wants to address the board and has a yellow card, fill out if you want to bring it up now.
Hi, Marty Richmond from Hollister. First of all, I'd like to clarify a few things. A few of the speakers here have come up with the number 4,000, 4,000. They've said 4,000, 4,000 times. The ballot certification did not come up with 4,000 valid signatures. I assume since they talk about accuracy, they know that the signature number came up to about 2,600 on sample, did not come up to 4,000. Second, if people signing a petition are the same as voting, why have an election? The last speaker seems to think, oh, a lot of people signed the petition, therefore everybody must be for this. Okay, let's save a lot of money. Let's eliminate the election. Let's just have a petition based on people standing around interpreting what goes forward. I think it should be fair. If the word fracking needs to be in there, I have no problem with it. High intensities, okay. But I also think the portion of the ballot that says they ban all operations in that area, those rural areas, that needs to be in there because that's what it says. The fact that the gentleman before me says, well, it's only 3% of the county. Okay, we're banning speech only in your house. Free speech only in your house, but not your house. 99% of the county, we're allowing them to say whatever they want. I'm sorry, in your house, it doesn't matter because it's only your house. I believe it's important that the public know that this ballot initiative was written in a way to hide the fact, it's obvious, that it bans all petroleum operations in all those areas. That's why they keep pushing that down. They don't want anybody to know that. Now, I don't care what goes first. I don't care what goes second. I just want to make sure that it's an honest ballot measure. That somebody standing in a parking lot yelling, fracking kills your children, is not a vote. It's just somebody collecting signatures. In most cases, people collect signatures, are paid for it. Sometimes they're volunteers. Many times, they lose at the ballot box, no matter how many signatures they bring in. So it's different when you confront somebody coming out of the store and say, sign this, sign this, sign this, than when they get in the ballot box and they're not under pressure. So whatever the ballot measure you put in, it should be fair because I'm all for democracy. And in spite of what the second speaker said, I don't believe you should decide who has got the facts on their side. I believe once it goes to the ballot, the elector should decide. Thank you for your time. What? No pause?
Good afternoon, supervisors again, Chairman Munzer, staff, neighbors. My name is Christina Chavez Wyatt. I am a resident of San Benito County and a small business owner. And I'm here today also as a representative of San Benito United for Energy Independence. I fear that the proposed amended language is a misleading and deceptive attempt to shut down San Benito County's very small but vital oil and gas industry. The measure is written to suggest it would ban only certain types of extraction practices, but in reality, as Marty stated, it would prohibit all petroleum operations countywide, as traditional steam injection, for example, is necessary to extract the heavy crude oil in our area, which is the consistent of tar or asphalt. Low intensity, in addition, low intensity drilling is not defined in the proposed ballot language or within the summary, but as has been described in communications at our Chamber Green Business Committee as what's called a stick-and-hole Jed Clampett style production, which I understand is not possible either in our county nor much less within the state of California. Just technically not the way that oil and gas is extracted or explored. If a full summary additionally is to be included in a sample ballot, it'd be important for us to know how much it would cost for the translation, printing, and mailing of it. And I understand, as I was here at your meeting when you were looking at doing a fiscal analysis, that unfortunately you decided not to have that fiscal analysis done. So I think it's important that we understand the bottom line implications of printing and distributing that ballot language. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that'd like to address the board?
Good afternoon, Board. I'm Kate Woods from New Idria, and I just want to say that a lot of people worked really hard to get this initiative on the ballot. And as was mentioned, yes, I do believe that the petition initiative ballot method is pretty much a cornerstone of this democracy. To put language in that begins with saying that this initiative bans petroleum operations, that's the first thing that people see when they want to vote on their ballot. And if I didn't know anything about fracking and I saw that, I'd say, well, that's kind of crazy. I probably wouldn't read any further. You know, the other thing is that, so that's got to change. That really does. It's not fair, and it doesn't reflect that initiative. And aside from that, the initiative is only, I believe, 6 pages long. I mean, that is not like an encyclopedia. So the other point I wanted to make is that the opposition, and I do believe some of them are getting paid by big oil and gas. We know from one Texas oil company, and that you can find on the FPPC website. But they say over and over and again that we're banning all conventional oil throughout the county, which is a patent falsehood. Now, I'm not just yanking that out of my hat. I actually called and interviewed your planning department and your planners. It bans conventional oil drilling in 3% of the county. Yeah, okay, your house, your house. But let me tell you, this initiative doesn't really change that aspect of drilling in this county. Because right now, no, you can't drill in the middle of the street of downtown Hollister. No, you can't. You know, and the designation of rural is misleading because, you know, people think that it's way out in the boonies like where I live. You know, rural basically means the suburbs. So it allows your granddaddy's oil drilling in 97% of the county. And the way that staff opened up that 75-word pitch, that question that people are going to read when they go to vote, is so misleading to ban all oil operations. Oh, and then we're kind of going to explain it. I just don't think it's fair, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went in to trying to save the water in this county. And during a drought, it's very important. We need water. We don't have water, game over. But thank you very much for listening.
Hello, Board of Supervisors. My name is David Maynard. I just want to say that everybody in SBR are a wonderful group of people and are fighting for the community. They're fighting for Mother Earth's side. Honoring Mother Earth is a must. After all, we came from the dust. Nobody in SBR is, I can guarantee you, is doing this for any kind of cash or anything. They're doing it out of the pureness of their heart, for the community, for the future of this wonderful, you know, town. It's a wonderful county. There's so many things, off the top of my head, so many things misleading oil companies are doing. I get so upset when I see commercials on TV saying that fracking is proven to be safe. You got to be kidding me. Right now in Texas, Colorado, they've closed, like last week, they closed a bunch of plants down temporarily because they're having earthquakes there. They're having an article recently in Kansas, they're having earthquakes there. And there's a lot of things that are really misleading. Barbara Boxer, I met a couple beautiful souls a couple weeks ago that had, this girl, a little precious little child, had congestional heart problems and nosebleeds down in L.A. because she's near people that take oil deep in the soil. And Barbara Boxer, I commend her immensely for going down, investigating, and temporarily shutting it down. There's been a few earthquakes going on down there lately. You know, for goodness sake, all awake, this is no place to cause the earth to shake. You know, and as far as another thing they talk about so much is recycling water. You know, we're in a terrible drought. Water is like the blood of the earth, you know. Mother Earth is being gentle on us, giving us little love taps. If Mother Earth snaps, there will be no more love taps. You know, it's just something, playing games with Mother Earth. It just cannot go on. We all have to, this can be, the oil companies get their way. They have the billions of dollars to fork out, mislead. Hanging out in Indian Canyon, I've met people that their word is their bond. These people die for the words, and so many people, I respect all you politicians, all you guys. I respect every one of you. I pray for you all the time. I respect you. But so many politicians, so many people, their word is just something that can just go, and it doesn't matter. Hanging out in Canyon, I see so many people that the word is their bond, and they'll die for their word. And there's so many things that are misleading, and I just think that personally everything should pretty much be the way it was on the ballot, especially the bit about toxic stuff. Off the top of my head, I remember something about it wasn't the way it was rewritten, was something about not being on there. I think that should definitely be on. All right, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else that'd like to address the board? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Actually, I have a question of Larry. If you'd like to step up to the podium again, please.
Yes.
In your revision, you talk about low-intensity petroleum operation.
Actually, the revision was done by Nancy. She would probably be the one. I haven't even seen the revision.
Maybe it's
yeah.
Nancy.
She has the clean edition. She would be the one, Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then. All right.
You want? Yeah.
By the way, the revision was worked out by Shoot Mahali, but the submission of the clean version has come from me this morning, but that is essentially our counter proposal.
Okay. My question is, you talk about low-intensity petroleum operation.
Yes.
And I guess I usually consider that conventional petroleum operation, and I wonder if the general public would recognize that better as conventional petroleum operation as opposed to...
Well, certainly in our promotion of this politically, we would use the term conventional. I do not believe that appears in the initiative, but low intensity is in fact defined in the initiative as being what is left after you consider what high-intensity things are. So in other words, the high intensity is the fracking, the acid well stimulation. Enhanced recovery includes cyclic steam.
I understand all that.
Yes.
But you're saying that the low intensity is defined in the initiative itself?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I think you hit on something. 1 second, Nancy,
Yes.
please. We defined high intensity in the alternative ballot question.
Yes.
But you didn't, is there a way to defining low intensity in this ballot question, so in fairness of what low intensity is?
The problem, and both our offices face this problem, it's a 75-word limit. And that's why it's so important to have the text of the actual initiative there, because these are terms of art in the initiative. So if someone is confused about what high intensity means, they can look it up in the back of the book. That's why we're saying it's very important to have the full text there. So we want to emphasize the contrast, the fact that not everything is banned, high intensity is abolished, low intensity is accepted. You can't do anything in residential rural areas because nobody wants to be sitting on their porch and be affected by this sort of procedure. So in other words, I think we both make compromises when we're drafting in a 75-word format, and we're both trying to convey, I think, the strongest sense of what is really in play. I think the word fracking, if it's not there, that's deceptive, quite frankly, and that is in the initiative. In other words, the ballot question is supposed to take its language from the title and summary previously prepared by County Counsel's office. So, in other words, these are the terms of art used in that summary. If you look on the first page, well, unfortunately, you don't have it before you because it was in your agenda on May 6th. But the fact of the matter is, on the first page in that title and summary, all these terms are there. High-intensity petroleum operations, low-intensity petroleum operations. The fact that that's an exception. The fact that in residential general plan designations, you can't have any because we don't want people bothered in their homes. And that's, I think, something that we have the better policy argument. So, in other words, I think the voter has to have the right to look it up. And not everybody has a computer. Not everybody is computer literate where they're going to jump on and pull it up on a website. So the idea that you're going to save a few $1,000s not to print this, I think that does a disservice to the voters. Basically, I believe our proposed form of the ballot question more concretely conveys in a non-misleading way what's really an issue here. That it doesn't ban everything, that low-intensity operations are allowed, that this can't be done in the rural residential parts of the county. So basically, that's why we've taken exception to what is proposed. We think it's misleading.
Yeah, I have no argument with that. I'm just trying to figure out a way that, you know, we could get the same type of definition what low intensity is. You know, some people, maybe quite a few people, don't even read the, you know, all the information that's available. They'll go to a ballot box and just read the description.
Yes.
But that would really satisfy, you know, what
Well, I'll read it to you. In other words, in Policy 42 of the initiative, it says, low-intensity petroleum operations mean all petroleum operations that are not high-intensity petroleum operations as defined by Land Use Policy 41. So it's a yin-yang thing. Whatever's not in this section of the circle, that's what remains for. In other words, the common sense interpretation of it is historic conventional types of vested oil operations are protected here and they will continue, except if it's outside somebody's front yard. You know, and otherwise, these high-intensity or enhanced recovery operations are the types of things that this addresses and prohibits. Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
I thank you very much.
Any other questions of staff? What's the pleasure of the board?
I just have a comment and a statement, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I'm against fracking, as all of you well know, but I'm not against petroleum operations, otherwise I wouldn't be driving a car. But I don't believe that this was done properly. There was no fiscal analysis done as I had requested when we first voted on this on May the 6th. The initiative is not clear to me as I think it should be. So with that being said, I will not be voting in favor of anything going on the ballot. So just want to make sure that the community knows the direction that I'll be going. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, given a choice of between the two questions, and I've worked with Barbara on a number of different issues, and I know she's probably agonized over this.
She did.
And her garbage can is probably full of drafts, and that's just, we're blessed to have her on our staff. But like I stated earlier, I think it gives us a better definition faster with the alternative proposed question. And if given the choice between the two of them, I would love to have a better definition of low intensity, alongside of the high intensity. But I think it's absolutely critical that the description is there quicker in the first sentence. And I'm going to support the proposed ballot question that was given to us. And, I know you worked hard
No,
on
that's
it. And
okay.
a lot of it's here, too.
Yeah, and the other option, if the board would like, is just to add the words high intensity and strike the words exploration, drilling, and production of petroleum, gas, and hydrocarbons, so that it would read, it would go to ban high-intensity petroleum operations involving well stimulation treatments and enhanced recovery. So if you strike those words that are in parentheses right now, you'd get to the question faster. But whatever the board would like to do with the ballot question, that's fine. The estimate of cost of publishing for the elections department is approximately, I believe, $6,000 to $9,000, but it could range as low as $4,000, like $200 up to $12,000, but probably between $6,000 to $9,000 to publish the text of the ballot. And the text of the initiative, I'm sorry.
I think in
So-
this particular case with, so many people interested in this measure, I would support publishing it as
Okay.
well.
You're making a motion, correct?
No, I wasn't making, if there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion dealing
No,
with
I
the
think there's
ballot
further, what I was trying to
context.
remember was that actual motion, or you were just discussing?
I was just
okay,
I'll
then-
make a motion
Well,
if there's
let's-
more,
All right, let's
no
wait,
more
I think
discussion.
Supervisor De La Cruz has.
Okay.
Thank you. Nancy, can you come up to the podium again, please? Pardon me? Can you come to the podium?
Yes.
What is the recommendation? Is it the one you're suggesting, this one or this one? 'Cause
Well, actually, the one in your right hand is just a cleaner version without what we call redlining or marking up. In other words, in the attorney's original letter, they were showing where edits or additions had been made. So this just makes a clean presentation of it for your consideration.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah, and I too will support publishing the document. I think this is a very important historical voting that the public's going to make, and I think we need to provide as much tools and as much education before they decide to make a vote on this item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, as I stated previously, I, as well, am supportive of the secondary proposed ballot question that Supervisor Patello just spoke to, or for. And I, as well, want to see the entire initiative published in the booklet. I think it's extremely important. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I'll throw it out to my fellow board members. You're all okay with low intensity as opposed to conventional petroleum operation?
Personally, I'm okay with low intensity. I would prefer conventional because I think that, I personally, when I'm speaking about this issue, I refer to the conventional all the time. So that makes more sense to me. But I do understand that if the initiative uses low intensity, I think we should stick with low intensity. It makes the most.
Okay.
Well, from my perspective, and someone might know better than I do without seeing the definitions in the initiative, if you don't have the definition of conventional in the initiative, then you will get in trouble using conventional.
Yeah, I think it's probably better to stick with the low intensity if you're going to,
Okay,
instead of change it to conventional, because it's not defined.
all right. Yeah, that's what I would suspect.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just, there's no way I was going to go there. I think low intensity should be in that language.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So then you, if that's the direction of the board, you could adopt the resolution as amended, inserting the new proposed ballot language into the resolution in paragraph 2. And then we'll just print out the revised resolution. But it would have to, you'd have to amend the resolution to include this new language if that's the board's desire.
Right, yes. And that will be, my motion is to, I guess we have that. Where's my paper? It's 68, huh? Oh, it's 67? Okay. Adopt resolution number 67 and amend the language for the ballot question regarding petroleum operations. And anything else I need to?
As presented on today's date.
Right, as stated. And let's see, that.
And direct the staff to
with the
publish the full text.
Right.
Okay.
And so, and also publish the full initiative.
Okay, so Barbara, you have that?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Post.
Okay, passes 4-1.
Okay.
So you have everything you need from us to put this on the ballot.
I think so.
What about the arguments?
The board didn't decide about whether to appoint one or more board members to do arguments. It's not required, though. But just to let the board know that it has that capability if it's so desired.
I think we have to stay neutral in this one.
I won't support it.
Okay.
We'll just let you go.
You good there?
You didn't ask me.
I was trying to keep you from getting in trouble. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for sitting through our morning session. I'm
Yes,
sorry we had to put you through that.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming.
Margaret, I'll see you at the next meeting. I hope so.
Yeah, they stuck through a long one.
They did. When they're passionate about something, they don't say.
Well, you don't get one. Just give me
So,
I can't believe it.
You know how we think of it?
yeah, well, one more. One more item.
One more.
Okay, I think we are ready to move to our last item on the agenda. Mr. Espinoza?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we're on our last item this afternoon. On June 16th, 2014, during our budget hearing, I'd mentioned to your board that would be coming back to you with regards to the vehicle abatement measure. And today, we're coming back to you to have a discussion on whether or not we want to proceed with the ballot measure regards to this for November. So today we have Barbara Thompson. She's our Assistant County Counsel here to highlight a few more points with regards to this and to discuss this with your board. Barbara?
Okay, this item is a resolution to place the abandoned vehicle fee on the ballot for November 2014. As the board recalls, the AVA fee, which abandoned vehicle, it collects $1 per vehicle registration, vehicles registered in San Benito County, and $2 on certain commercial vehicles. Without approval of the voters, the county would have to cease collection of the fee. It was on the June 2014 ballot, and it just barely missed passing. It requires a 2/3 majority vote. I believe it had 63 point something percent. And so the question that the board can consider is whether, with the greater turnout in November, plus additional education to the public and a little bit more publication about this fee, whether or not it's possible to get that extra couple percent that's necessary to continue this fee for another 10-year period of time. So basically, if the board wants to move forward with this one, it would just adopt the attached resolution, placing the measure on the ballot, and the cost of the November ballot measure would be between $5,000 to $8,000. The annual revenue received from the program is approximately $54,000. And so the second part is delegate authority, if desired, to one or more board members to prepare an argument in favor of the proposed measure. If you have any questions, I'm available for questions.
Okay. Are there any questions of Barbara?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to support it. I think we were so close, and I think we'll have better luck in November. But is it possible to change, or do we need to write out the $1 and $2? Could we do it numeric, rather than?
Oh.
And that would be on page 687. And I'm just thinking that may, $1 doesn't look like a lot if it's written out as $1.
Okay.
Would that be cheaper?
Do you want to do it like the gas stations, put 99.99%?
Then there's no question, $1 with no zeros on it, and then $2 with no zeros. I'm just thinking that may just sway them the other, in favor of. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
We got to do it differently this time.
Yeah, who supported it this time? Let's take those guys out.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that wants to address this item?
Well, we found a ballot measure I can support. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I would like to suggest that you find a community organization that will help you fund some posters showing an abandoned car in the local neighborhood and saying, this is the vote yes on prop, whatever or measure, whatever the number is going to be in the letter, and say, so we can get this car out of your neighborhood. Okay. People really hate abandoned cars in their neighborhood. And there's another potential problem you can use in the ballot argument, whoever writes it, which is when abandoned cars are sitting in the neighborhood, if it's in the city area, the street sweeper cannot sweep the streets. And when the street sweeper cannot sweep the streets, you wind up with it going down the storm drain, and when you wind up with it down the storm drain, you wind up eventually with a huge fine from the water district down in San Luis Obispo, I think they are. The storm drain guys, I can't remember where they are. I think they're in San Luis Obispo. So I think you overestimated the voters paying attention, and I don't think they were paying any attention to that ballot. Some of them did, but I think many of them just said, no, that's just another tax. I think they don't know what it goes for. So I think with some education and a more aggressive thing, I think you could win easily. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the public to address this item? Seeing none? I guess I have an issue with, there's been so many times where ballot has passed and then got overturned by the courts. Ballot got passed and special interest brings it back to get it overturned. I have a philosophical issue with bringing this back so quickly after it did not pass. I know we'll have to wait for 2 years if we don't do it now, but I'm struggling with this one.
Oh,
But I
you
may be
are?
struggling because it's an election year. But anyway,
Don't you see Stacy out here?
Huh?
Her sad set face?
Yeah, I really, Mr. Chair, if I could, I really like Marty's idea. You know, the Downtown Association does a heavy-duty, and I think maybe the Chamber of Commerce cleanup once a year. They could be instrumental in helping us in some way to advertise how this can help us clean up. San Benito High School has an organization of a club of kids that go out to the river and clean up. And they discover all these cars that have, over the years, and they clean those up, and I'm sure this money has helped to do that. So I think if we can engage those groups, we are going to be successful, so I'll support it.
Well,
Matt, is this a 4/5 vote, or Barbara, is this a 4/5 vote, or is it?
No, because this is a special tax, it's a majority vote. The other one was a general tax, and therefore it requires the two-thirds, 4/5.
This is majority?
This is majority, I believe.
No, yeah, the majority because special and.
At the electorate, it's two-thirds.
Majority.
At the
But it only
electorate, but to
requires
get
a
it on the
majority.
majority of the board to get it
Got it.
past the resolution. But it is a two-thirds vote at the electorate.
Okay.
You know, another group, kind of an obvious one, I think Farm Bureau ought to get on top of this. How many cars have you taken from my property, Stacy, over the years? At least 3 or 4. Yeah.
Shoot,
Yeah.
they can take some donations, Supervisor Bartolo.
Well, I thought the county was making money on the scrap.
Well, if you had gotten rid of them, they wouldn't have to go get them for you.
Oh, no, the county's
All
not
right,
making,
all
some
right.
private businesses.
What's the pleasure of the
I'll
board?
make a motion that we proceed per staff, well, I guess it's a recommendation to adopt the resolution number 2014-70.
At-
Oh. 69.
As amended to change the numbers to the dollar
I
amounts.
made that recommendation and amend it to show numbers instead of wording for the $1 and $2.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No. Passes 3-2.
Oh, that was scary.
Oh, that was
Hold on, let's
close.
reconsider.
That was close.
Barbara, you
Robert.
need to ask them whether they want to write the argument
Yes.
for you.
Would the board like to appoint individuals to write the arguments in favor of the ballot measure? The arguments in favor of, as you recall, there was an argument that was signed last in June by a majority of the board. So if you want to appoint certain members to sign the argument on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, you could do so. That would be similar to the argument that was presented at the last election.
Do you anticipate there would be any changes to that argument from last year?
No, you just need to, if you want to appoint members to do it on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, you can do that. Otherwise, the board members can submit their own arguments as individuals.
Shoot, let Marty do it.
All right. I guess it'd be of the 3 that voted in favor, do you want to?
I'll volunteer,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
I'll do it, too.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So
Is
you'll-
that a vote on the argument on behalf of the Board of Supervisors? Is there a motion to do that, or are they doing it as individuals?
No, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors would be my
Okay.
Okay,
recommendation.
do you need a motion?
I think that would be appropriate.
You wanna make a
I'll make the
motion?
motion that we have 2 representatives of the Board of Supervisors to write or the letter in favor. of-
In- To write,
The
submit the
argument.
letter on behalf of the board.
Okay, on behalf of the board. So that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. You guys didn't include me.
We volunteered.
No, aye.
Those opposed? No. Was it 3-2 or 4-1?
4-1.
3-2, we'll be consistent.
He said, I heard him say
Oh.
yes.
Oh, did he?
Put your
Yes,
name
you
All
on
right,
it,
then
too,
4-1.
Limey. You can put your name on it, too.
Howard.
All right.
2-2-1.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.